Our opinions aren't too tough, rough, or gruff. We are proof that you don't have to be an expert to have an opinion. So just
Shut up and sit down.
This is Sports Stuff with Jim and Muff. This is Sports Stuff with Jim and Muff plus Keef.
Hello, world. I have returned.
And we're glad you're back.
The Baltimore guru Keef joins the show this week to replace Alex, who is at this point probably in a surgery.
Yeah. What surgery? We don't know. From the stories we've heard, he might be hands deep in an anal sphincter. But
More
good
stories.
luck to Alex.
Alex doesn't tell us any of these stories.
No.
Jim.
I just make them up as I go along.
That would be against some oath, I think.
Probably.
Today is Monday, August 29th. And it's finally happened, gentlemen. We finally had football that means something over the past
Thank
weekend.
goodness.
Well, we had week 0. This is what we had.
So you're just discounting the fact that there were Big Ten game?
It was like foreplay, you know? It kind of was cool, but it wasn't the big show.
Okay. Well.
Like, we could have skipped it, you know?
But we didn't. So
But
we
we
actually
didn't.
had football that means
Right,
something
so
to
we
the
got
real
bonus
record.
points. Like, hey, we got the foreplay in.
Apparently, making your linemen throw up and berating them isn't how you develop a winning team, Jim.
No,
We'll talk
absolutely
more on
not.
Scott Frost in Nebraska later.
Oh, good grief.
It's getting a little
Really made us look like asshats for our preview last week.
Who's us?
Me and Alex.
Okay, good.
Asshats.
I was not on the Cornhusker train.
You were not.
The podcast this past weekend was fortunate enough to sponsor its first golf hole at an outing sponsored for the West Liberty University wrestling team. Thank you to them for allowing us to do that, even though
that's awesome.
They may not realize what they got themselves into partnering with us on this.
Yeah.
So me, my dad, Keef, and a former West Liberty wrestler and my middle school gym teacher, Ted, represented the podcast in the event.
I already liked Ted's backstory, so Ted is now our guy for the show. I like Ted.
I don't know if we'll ever get Ted on the show, but
it's still our guy.
Still our guy. Our whole sponsor was very fittingly, and not because I had anything to do with it.
I don't believe that.
I was not asked. It was hole number 12.
Yeah, you did that.
Aaron Rodgers, baby.
That's horseshit. You had everything to do with that.
I had nothing to do with it, but I did have everything to do with winning a pretty cool prize.
Tell us the prize.
I won a signed Penn State 4-time national championship wrestling team signed by Cale Sanderson.
Did you get to pick that prize?
No, it was a pure draw. So Keith can attest. We put some dollars in for the 50-50, and then you could put dollars in for the prize drawings. So when you got back after you were done, the prize drawings were all out on a table, and you had to see if your ticket was the one that was picked, and it was taped to each prize. So you had to, if it was yours, you took the prize and your ticket to the people, and they confirmed it, and you took it with you.
Can confirm.
What were the options? Because of all the things for you to win, that is a very Muff prize.
It was very perfect.
So what else could you have won?
There were a lot of West Liberty wrestling swag items.
Uh-huh.
There were, I think, some golf giveaways, free rounds.
Of golf.
Yeah. So there were a lot of things. This, I think, to me, was probably the highest valued.
Yeah, that's pretty awesome.
They had a table outside as well, too. Table inside. There was at least 20 to 30 items they were raffling away. It was a pretty well attended event. They had every single hole. I think there was 20 teams total. I think a couple holes had 2 flights. So it was a good event, well attended, great weather, pretty smooth overall. So
how'd our team do?
Yeah, Keith.
We had
how'd our
fun.
team do? How'd our team do, Keith?
It was fun. It was a good time. I wasn't keeping score. I believe we were 3 under,
That's not true.
4 under.
We were 7 under.
Oh wow! Look at that.
Not as bad as it could have been given the way we played.
Point of order: I almost beheaded Muff's dad with an errant golf shot. True story. It was about head height, and it was no more than 10, 15 feet away from his head. Left or
Good
right of him.
grief.
It was what we call the shanks.
And that did happen. Keith will be with us throughout, I don't know how much of the show, but he'll be with us for as long as he chooses to be.
Yeah.
At the very least, through the Big Ten East Division breakdown, the AFC North breakdown, and Mount Massive. Without Keith or Alex, quick thoughts may be difficult, but
Yeah.
we'll see what we can do. As always, be sure to follow us at Sports Jim Muff on Instagram and Twitter, sports.w/Jim, Abraham Muff on Facebook and YouTube. Subscribe, comment, rate, review, poke, hit the bell.
Definitely review.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely.
Review, retweet, like,
Yeah.
repost, share,
All the things.
all the things. This is usually an Alex spot, but an update on the Pittsburgh Pirates. They are now 48-79, winning only one game this past week.
Hey, point of contention, since Keith's entered that into my life, and I love that. Weren't the Orioles like the shittiest team in baseball at the beginning of the season?
They were. They were also really crummy last year. They are now 67-60. So they have a winning record. Last I checked,
They're in the hunt.
I think they had the last wild card spot. I'm not sure of that at this point in time.
So, Muff, how does that make you feel as a Pirates fan? Like they were in the bottom of the barrel and now they're climbing the mountain.
That's normal to being a Pirates fan.
So is that just part of the shtick? Like, oh, it's okay. People are gonna pass this on the way to the top, and it's such is life.
Yes, Jim.
Saw that on ESPN today, and I was like, how do the Pirates feel? Like the Orioles sucked so bad in the beginning.
I mean,
now,
this is the same like you following the Browns. Let's be real.
No, because like the Browns, like aside from last year, you had one good year, like we're gonna make it. Every other year, you're like, we are going to suck. And we start out sucky, and it is sucky. The Pirates, like you guys have this dick tease moment, and then it just goes away.
Where was the tease this year?
The Orioles were at the bottom.
Oh, well, the Pirates are still better than like 2 teams.
So it's who can we survive? Like who can we outlast for the sucky spot?
Well, I mean, yes.
Sometimes it's a war of attrition.
It morphs into that as the season progresses. It's let's not be last. So
I misspoke earlier. Baltimore is 2 spots. They have the second. They are 2 spots out of the wild card.
Gotcha.
But
they're in the hunt.
Bright note for the Pirates. Shortstop O'Neal Cruz hit the hardest ball in the StatCast era last week at 122.4 miles an hour on an absolute bullet off the Clemente wall at PNC Park.
That is ridiculously fast.
Well, see you in the Yankees next year.
No, he's still young. He's got at least 2 more years before the Pirates figure out what to do with him otherwise.
Gotcha.
2 more years. So let's see if they can make the playoffs one of those 2 years. So this leads us into what had been a time when Jim would try not to defecate in his pantalones.
Yes.
But I'm not sure what we're going to call this yet. So, Jim, I'm going to let you take this because it is now
football season.
Get on board with that.
Yeah.
Is that going to be consistent or you can change it up each week?
I might try it every time.
All right. It is 10 days to NFL football. College football is obviously upon us, even though Jim doesn't recognize week 0.
No.
But we're going to talk about the games in week 0, more specifically a couple games.
Ugh.
First, starting out, don't bury the lead. Northwestern takes Nebraska and puts them into the potato patch in Dublin, Ireland, winning 31-28. Nebraska was up 28-17 in the second half of this game and actually blew 2 double-digit leads.
Yep.
Up 28-17, Scott Frost decides to go for an onside kick.
Yeah.
Were you watching this game, Jim? Because we were at the golf.
No, I was not, and I because I didn't really remember it was week 0. It wasn't till late in the day where I was like, college football, shit, and that's when I was like, what did Scott Frost do? Oh no. And that's why I was like, this is dumb.
He, after the game, ripped the offensive line again because that was the problem.
Not his coaching. You're right.
Not that they blew 2 double-digit leads, which would lead to a defensive issue, or you went for an onside kick up 2 scores, not an offensive line issue.
Yeah.
But here we are.
Yeah.
Jim,
Moron.
would you like to reassess your Nebraska prediction?
Oh, they won't make it. Not going to be good. He's going to screw it up. I don't know that he'll last the whole season.
There's already some rumblings in
Yeah.
Lincoln about him. In other Big Ten action, Illinois beats Wyoming 38-6.
I did catch part of this game. That running back for Illinois is going to give defenses some nightmares. I am worried about that running back.
Okay.
I think you were right when you said last week, like they're going to catch a team.
I mean, they did last year with Penn State. Penn State played down to their competition and lost. So I think Illinois got 1 in them.
Maybe 2 after watching that game.
The University of North Carolina rolls over Florida A&M 56-24. Interesting side story about this game. Florida A&M went into this week with 20 ineligible players due to academics and transfer issues. Head coach Willie Simmons left it up to players if they wanted to play. Obviously, they took advantage of this opportunity. They only traveled with 7 by position offensive linemen.
Good grief.
You don't got much left there. But on a positive note, the team did receive $450,000 to play the game.
Get that paper. Florida State in games of teams that definitely got money to play against them. Florida State over the Dukes of Duquesne 47-7. Okay.
Western Kentucky over Austin P 38-27.
Starting to see why week 0 sucks. Keep going.
UNLV over Idaho State 52-21.
Okay. Again, week 0 sucks.
Utah State over Connecticut 31-20.
Continue.
Florida Atlantic over Charlotte 43-13.
Okay.
Nevada over New Mexico State 23-12.
Okay.
North Texas over the University of Texas El Paso 31-13.
Okay.
And in the nightcap, the game at 10:30, which is the only game I saw any of yesterday, Vanderbilt rolls over Hawaii 63-10.
I watched part of this game because I was up late. Did Hawaii suck that bad, or is Vandy like an okay team?
I'm not going to say that Vanderbilt's okay by SEC standards, but Vanderbilt's probably okay by non-Power 5 standards.
Right. Okay. That's what I needed to know. Yeah.
Alex did tell us that he had some bets over the weekend, none of which I think did well. I think Alex had Nebraska to cover, which didn't work out. And I tried to give Alex a tidbit of betting information. I was not necessarily tipping the pick, but Hawaii was, over the past 13 seasons, excluding Saturday, was 11-2 against the spread. Hawaii did not cover with their plus 8.5 in this game. Say lovey.
Okay.
Keef, you're a fellow. You're like the health. What do we call you? Healthcare professional degenerate?
Yeah, I suppose. I don't know if those two terms should go together, but yes,
Right.
I'm in the healthcare field.
Well, maybe just the healthcare degenerate, not the healthcare professional degenerate.
I see what you're getting at. I don't like it, but I'll accept it.
Did you have any bets this weekend? I did not. I said I'm staying away from week 0.
I did not from week 0. I am keeping it simple for right now. We're going to get a gauge to see where everyone is come week 1, officially week 1, and we'll go from there. But I am looking forward to it. I have a little bit of coin saved up, and we'll be making some bets here and there as the season progresses.
Excellent.
Keith could be a guest on the betting show at some point, maybe.
Yeah.
I do have a few futures out, NFL, but we'll get to that later.
Okay. Which does bring us to week 1. And
Yeah.
a quick preview. Jim probably has, Alex would have had probably the best preview for West Virginia this week. So we'll try for Alex. The return of the backyard brawl this Thursday
Let's
night.
go Pitt. Let's go Pitt.
Alex is not here to defend himself, Jim.
Yep.
I don't know if that's fair. West Virginia is taking on Pittsburgh. I believe this game is Keith. Is it at Acrisure Stadium?
I don't know, to be honest.
Well, I will be Alex Lane. I will get on the Google machine.
Get on the Google machine. So, what is this? The first time in
It is at Pitt.
5 or 6 years, Keith? Does that sound about right?
I actually think it's probably longer than
Is
that.
it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
think so.
Yeah.
All right. So a great rivalry back. So that's nice in week one. It's a good headline for Thursday night. Penn State also plays Purdue on Thursday night, which is the same night as the Sports Stuff with Jim and Muff Fantasy Football Draft. Unfortunate for people that don't want to participate.
Want to watch two bullshit games?
Are you saying Pitt's going to steamroll West Virginia at this point,
Yes.
Jim? Is that what you're getting at?
Yes.
What are you saying about the Penn State game, Jim?
Penn State's going to romp Purdue.
I hope so.
Romp.
I hope so. And Jim, I will let you preview your game on Saturday night.
Ohio State's going to beat Notre Dame. I think it's going to be a quick. It's going to be a couple big blows in the beginning. It's going to be a tough first quarter, and then eventually all those weapons for Ohio State will take over in the second half.
All right. That's pretty typical though, based on our discussions of Ohio State. That's typical game one, though, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you're prepared for that.
Yes.
So how upset will you be? Will you like throw things if things don't go well, or are you just like, this is normal? This is normal.
Yeah, I'll be fine.
Okay.
If Notre Dame pulls it out, Columbus will riot, and they will call for Ryan Day's head.
Will they denounce Catholicism?
Ohio's a funny state. I don't think that's a thing we should get into today. Odd state.
Wraps up week 0 college roundup. Any other closing thoughts on the college football games from this past weekend?
I will steed in Alex's absence and say go West Virginia and Neil Brown.
There we go. What's West Virginia's chant in this game? Eat shit, Pitt.
Eat shit, Pitt.
Pitt doesn't have one, do they? Like,
no, because they're not degenerates. They're not like
beat the Mountaineers. Wow.
I'm sure there's a West Virginia joke somewhere in there to be made, but
Jim's just bashing of an entire state. He's gone outside of Morgantown now. It's the whole state.
Yeah.
I mean, they are the premier college football team in the area. There's a few others, but don't forget about Marshall.
Marshall's the football team in West Virginia, in my opinion.
Oh, what?
Randy Moss doesn't play there anymore. You know that, right?
I think Marshall is the team.
Wow. Any reasoning or logic? I'm kind of curious now.
I hate WVU.
Fair enough.
So Huntington is greater than Morgantown. That's what I'm hearing.
Yep.
I can't argue with that logic.
Keith, you live outside of Morgantown.
I was always told never argue with a crazy man.
Didn't your wife go to school there?
She did. So
Jim.
So it's funny enough. She was actually in side story, getting a little off topic here, but in I think it was the 70-63 game when they played against Baylor. There's a big bowl shot from up above in the stadium. And if you look really close, there's a group of her and her friends, and she's the only person not watching the game. She's facing the camera, and her face is clearly visible.
That's awesome.
But her image is immortalized in that picture. But
that's great.
Not paying attention to the game whatsoever.
You have that picture in your house, don't you?
We do, yes.
Yes, I thought so. Okay. So we'll move on to the NFL. We have some interesting news across the NFL this past week. We're going to start out with Aaron Donald pulling a Myles Garrett last week during during a joint practice session with the Bengals. Kind of got caught up in the middle of the pack. I still haven't seen what caused this aside from just dudes being dudes. Then he got hold of not just one but two Bengals helmets and was swanging them like a 7-year-old with a sparkler on the 4th of July.
Thank you for that. Like, you wrote that perfectly. Thank you. I didn't know if you were going to go full blown and say that, but that was amazing.
I was trying to think. I was like, what would describe this? And I was like, he was just kind of whipping them around, and that's what kids do with sparklers. So I was
Like a churro.
like a churro.
That was fantastic.
Since it was a joint practice, apparently this is like the NFL rules. It's an internal matter. The NFL doesn't necessarily get involved, and the Rams have stated it's been addressed, and the punishment will be kept private. Do we think this is how things should be, or should there be a line where the NFL steps in?
Let them live.
I think there needs to be a line drawn in certain instances. Swinging a helmet, regardless of if it's during the season or not, there should be some sort of repercussion from Roger and the NFL. Just because Miles did it in a game doesn't make it any less appropriate or doesn't make it any more appropriate in practice. I mean, you're swinging 2 helmets and going for someone.
There we go.
So, yeah, there needs to be someone stepping in.
All right, we'll see. I at this point, I don't think anything's going to happen from the NFL, so we'll leave it at that. Washington defensive end Chase Young was placed on the reserve physically unable to perform list, still recovers from an ACL tear, meaning he will miss at least the first 4 games of the season. Jim, how much of a blow is this to Washington, and how much time do we think Chase Young will miss this season?
Oh, he's going to miss 2. I think beyond this, he'll miss 2 more games. Washington also just had their running back shot.
Yes.
That was breaking news tonight. So
One of their running backs. I don't think it was their starter.
It's still crazy. Like, to me,
Yeah.
Washington has a lot of issues. I think Chase Young is a bigger issue. I don't know. I don't know if he'll come back full steam. I don't know.
TBD. Giants rookie defensive end Kayvon Thibodeau suffered a torn MCL last week and will miss 3 to 4 weeks. Should the Giants proactively hold him out longer to make sure he's good to go after spending the number 5 first-round pick this past draft on Thibodeau?
Yes.
How much?
What do they have to lose?
That's true. They do not have much. Geno Smith is named the starting quarterback in Seattle, and Drew Lock isn't necessarily happy about it. But Lock did not necessarily prove that he should be the starter, as he threw 3 interceptions in the Seahawks' last preseason game, solidifying that Smith is the steadier hand at the helm for this team. Drew Lock, in a statement, said, "I mean, as a competitor, you're always disappointed. You want to be out there. You want to play with those guys. You want to be able to step in the field, show what you can do, and you're disappointed."
I'm really glad to see Glassjaw Geno get a second chance.
There's a callback.
Drew Lock is Drew Lock. Like, why are you this upset? You know the role you play. Like, if you're not good enough, you didn't make the cut, and Geno beat you, you should be upset. Try harder.
Be better, as they say. Be better.
Yeah.
Alex did get trolled on Twitter about the Seahawks season being over from Alex's former theater director,
Yes,
which I thought was hilarious.
It was epic.
So follow us at Sports Jim Muff on Twitter to see more of that down the line. A Cowboys camp, but
why do we have to read this one?
Well, because it's Cowboys news, and we have to talk about the Cowboys
Ugh.
because everybody talks about the Cowboys. Cowboys left tackle Tyron Smith had his hamstring muscle come off the bone, and he will be missing significant time, as you would imagine, with an injury like that. A couple New York sports commentators last week said, and I forget the names, I think it's Mad Dog Russo and McLovin, formerly of the Dan Patrick Show, have a thing now, saying it's not as big a deal for linemen because they don't need as much time to adjust, and it's kind of more plug and play. Do we, as people, think it's that simple for offensive linemen to just fill in?
No, I do not think it is as simple as plug and play.
Not in the NFL, no.
Fair. Keef, real question for you. What type of recovery time, since you are a healthcare professional?
I would expect at least a year, potentially more. That's a really tricky injury. especially if you think about anyone in the NFL, but especially a lineman, the position you're in nonstop every single play. It's a very rare, pretty uncommon injury as well too. So I'd want to look more at maybe where the rupture was, how it happened.
Sounds awful.
I'm sure it did not feel pleasant. So,
real question: is it worse to do this or to have your lung
Shut up,
punctured
Muff.
by a needle?
God.
I mean, obviously, the recovery time for Tyrod Taylor was much less than a year.
I'm going to say the hamstring rupture, without a doubt.
Ugh.
The Cowboys do have some positives, though. They step into the season with offensive lineman Zach Martin, who has an absolutely ridiculous stat line. I came across this and I was like, this is worth at least mentioning, especially when you have one of their key offensive linemen go down. Zach Martin has more Pro Bowls, 7, than holding penalties, 6, since he entered the league in 2014. He committed 0 holding penalties in 2021, and it's his 5th such season since becoming a professional. Talk about just being just an all-around badass. Like, and it's not like he's making Pro Bowls and not holding. It's not like he's just like, he's actually doing well. So I thought that was really cool. Nobody else does, apparently.
No.
Okay.
I think it's impressive. Very impressive.
All right. Giants wide receiver Colin Johnson suffered a torn Achilles last week and will miss the season. The Giants apparently just can't get a break right now.
No, they can't. Poor guys.
Poor G-men. Daniel Jones was seen signing a was it as is Zyn? Is that one of the tobacco dip products, like the alternates or the replacements? They may know this.
I don't, Muff.
Okay. Anyway, he was signing one of those cans as an autograph, which I think goes a long way to say how much the Giants care about what's going on day to day.
Yeah.
Lastly, the worst topic of the week, but we would not be a sports show if we did not cover this to some degree. Matt Ariza, formerly known as the punt god, and I'm saying that because until further notice, I hope nobody refers to him as this ever. Matt Ariza, along with 2 former San Diego State football teammates, were accused and alleged to be involved in the gang raping of a 17-year-old high school student. This, and people can prove wrong on this, apparently was not known fully when they drafted him, but the Bills did become aware recently. The reports are that the Bills knew of the allegations on July 31st from the victim's attorney, and then proceeded to cut, after this happened, the other punter on the roster, Matt Hack, and name Ariza the starter on August 22nd, despite obviously knowing about this accusation. Not going to get into details of this fully, aside from what's already been stated, because they are absolutely disgusting. But the Bills did cut him on Saturday, as I would hope and expect. The question I have for the group: how does something like this not come up in pre-draft vetting?
He's a punter. I just don't think they put any effort into it.
They drafted him, though, so you would think for all draft picks that could have potentially been someone else they were looking at. You would think, I mean, these NFL teams, they're investing hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars into these players. You want to be completely 100% sure as much as possible the character of these individuals. Sometimes stuff will slip through. Maybe PIs don't catch everything, or discussions with coaches, or the coaches want their players to be drafted, I'm sure, but that's a pretty big thing to slip through the cracks.
Yeah, it's pretty messed up. Like,
yeah. Well, is right. That's the last we're going to talk about that. Which gets into our college breakdown. This is the last week of breakdowns in football season. So after this week, it's all talking about what has happened on the field. So get super pumped about that. And the last breakdown, as has been the case in every year we've been doing these, is the Big Ten East Division. Keith also has some stake in this, although he does not necessarily follow the team, being from Baltimore, the Maryland Terrapins. obviously Jim is the fanatic for a team from Ohio that has a Buckeye as a mascot, and I am a Penn State fan, so
I'm the Ohio homer.
also true. So last year's standings: Michigan 12-2, 8-1, wins the East Division. Ohio State 11-2, 8-1, finishes in second place. Michigan State 11-2, 7-2 in the Big Ten in third. Penn State 7-6, 4-5. Then Maryland 7-6, 3-6. Rutgers 5-8, 2-7, and Indiana brings up the rear 2-10 and 1-9.
Yeah, that happened last year. We're gonna forget about last year. New year.
Well, we'll forget about it after this. Fair?
That's fair.
The breakdowns again, thanks to College Football News, because there's a lot of copy and paste action in this one. We're going to start as we have. We're going to start at the top, work our way down to the bottom of the division.
Sure.
Michigan at the top beat Ohio State, obviously winning the Big Ten championship.
How many times are you gonna say this? How many times are you gonna make this a thing?
This is the first time I've said it.
But I'm asking, like, is this the last time, first and last? Or am I gonna have to hear this?
I don't expect that I will talk about this again until that week for you.
Fair enough.
And then
All right.
we'll just have to remind everybody, because you have to say it that week, right?
I agree.
What happened last year? Fair?
I understand. I
We
just
can
want to
move
set the ground rules here. Like, let's move on.
Okay. As long as I get to set ground rules for Penn State as well.
I am not a guy who beats down on Ohio State versus Penn State. You know this.
No, I'm just saying generally about Penn State.
That's fine.
Okay. So again, they went to the college football playoff. That's really all that we should expect from Michigan. I mean, that's what they've been waiting for, and they finally broke through. It just did not seem possible for many years, obviously. Offensively,
Fluke.
Michigan led the Big Ten in rushing. They led the Big Ten in fewest sacks allowed. They led the nation in fewest tackles for loss per game allowed. They were a balanced attack at 443 yards per game, didn't turn the ball over. So really the
First time in a century.
The formula for success for all college teams and football teams to be successful was duplicated in Ann Arbor last year. Now they have to continue that with a new offensive coordinator. In fact, they have 2 new offensive minds in the coach room with Matt Weiss. And they who's that? Sharon Moore are the 2 people. So Weiss had some time with the Ravens, Keith, if you knew that name.
I did not.
Me either. And Sharon Moore spent the last few seasons with the tight ends. The situation for them isn't necessarily bad on the offensive side of the ball, but they still need to obviously keep up what they did last year with not turning the ball over much. The QB situation has been determined that Cade McNamara will start game 1, JJ McCarthy will start game 2, and then they're kind of going to figure it out from there. I don't recall there being a lot of success whenever this is how you start the season at quarterback. Ever.
Urban Meyer did that. Tressel did that. Neither one of those worked.
Yeah. The health of wide receiver Ronnie Bell, who missed most of last year with a knee injury, is a big deal on the offensive side of the ball, but he is expected to be back along with leading receiver Cornelius Johnson and pass catching tight end Eric All. The offensive line should be okay, but they may need some time to work themselves in. They added Olusegun Owatimi from Virginia at center and settles the front 5, which has all Big Ten guard Zach Zinter, along with tackle Ryan Hayes. 20 touchdown back Hassan Haskins has moved on, but Blake Corum is back after running for almost 1,000 yards and 11 scores last year. Jim, does Michigan offensively scare you as an Ohio
No.
State fan? Okay.
No more than Penn State does.
Fair enough. On the defensive side of the ball, new defensive coordinator Jesse Minters coming over from Vanderbilt, and he's a rising star who spent time with the Ravens. I'm seeing a trend here, Keith. What is is there the Harbaugh connection? Is that
It's
what
the
this is?
Harbaugh connection.
Brother vets the thing and sends him his way.
It's back and forth. The 2 of them are probably scheming underneath their bed sheets, talking on the phone secretly, and conniving how to run the NFL and pipeline Michigan to NFL. It's a whole Ponzi scheme.
It's a Ponzi scheme. That's
Sounds good to me. That's a good way to put it.
harsh words. I'm not even going to move on. I'll move on then. Even with Aiden Hutchinson and David Ajabo, the overall pass rush was just okay last year. Those two were obviously the headliners. They accounted for 25 of the team's 34 sacks. It's going to obviously be difficult to replace them and their production, but they're going to try to start with N. Taylor Upshaw, who is the leading returning sacker last year with 2.5. So a lot to replace on that line as far as the sack production. The interior is an area that should more seamlessly transition with 326-pound All-Star Mozzie Smith and 275-pound junior Chris Jenkins. So that should be a solid piece to the defensive line. Several of the top tacklers are gone, but Junior Colson is in the middle at one linebacker spot after finishing 4th on the team with 61 tackles last year. And Nakai Hill Green will work on the outside, coming off a 50 tackle season. The secondary also missing some big parts from last year, but within the Big Ten, they should be okay. Plenty of options with all Big Ten caliber defensive back DJ Turner and veteran safety RJ Moten. Final thoughts on Michigan, Jim?
They're going to be a good team.
Be a good team. Did not expect that.
I don't think they're going to be a great team like they were last year, but they're going to be a good team.
Okay. And that brings us to Jim.
The Ohio State Buckeyes. At Ohio State, we have CJ Stroud, who is the lock at QB and a Heisman hopeful. Running back Trayvon Henderson is also a Heisman hopeful, but Mayan Williams will probably be also helping carry the load. At wide receiver is again the embarrassment of riches with Marvin Harrison Jr., Jackson Smith and Jigba, Emeka Igbuka, Jaden Ballard. Jaden Ballard is probably, coming up in the ranks. But the list goes on thanks to the recruiting of Brian Hartline. They are stacked deep at wide receiver. Tight end will be Cade Stover and Mitch Rossi. The O-line is stout, bringing in a lot of returners, but also filling it behind with some 4-star, 5-star recruits to cycle in and out. The offense is a machine. There's no worry on offense. Defensively, big questions. The big question since they took over is the defense. On offensive line, line coach Larry Johnson has Jack Sawyer, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, Tyler Friday. The offensive line should be firing on our defensive line should be firing on all cylinders. Behind them is the question. Coach Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State has a whole new scheme. He's got Steel Chambers at linebacker, but he's the only one real name that the casual fan will remember. Not to say they haven't loaded up in that position, but it's definitely an area that the historic Ohio State fan is very much keen to be watching. Same goes for the secondary. Denzel Burke and Jalen Brown are the only two returning cornerbacks. Ronnie Hickman, Josh Proctor, and Tanner McAllister are the safeties. None of those secondaries are breakout performers like it used to be. So it's a big question. I mean, they got burnt deep a lot. So will Jim Knowles and his new scheme and a new defense be the answer for Ohio State?
So is the key word for defense or the word to describe them unproven at this point?
Very much so. Very much so.
Aside from defensive line, because you pilfered Larry Sanders from Larry Johnson from Penn State.
Yes. And that's that's been that way since, the first Bosa. But the problem, and it's always been the problem, and we'll go through this whole rigmarole of vetting the other teams. The only two tests that Ohio State will run up against to test the secondary, Michigan and Penn State. And then we'll run up, if we beat them, we will run up against whoever the other side is, probably Wisconsin at this point, who probably still won't test that secondary.
Right.
And then you run into an SEC team who sure as shit will test that secondary. Yeah. So they got to get their shit together. That's Ohio State.
That's Ohio State. Moving on to another team from Michigan, but the state school variety, Michigan State. Was 11-2 in Mel Tucker's second season with the program, beat Michigan for the second year in a row, beat Penn State, went on to beat Pitt in the Peach Bowl. On offense, Michigan State, the running game now is minus Kenneth Walker. He obviously got all of the attention last year. They had a decent passing attack that kind of just blended well with the running attack, which has been a Michigan State staple. Somewhat like Wisconsin, aside from Michigan State can usually throw the ball better. The offense didn't control the clock again, but that's considering that Walker was just running all over many teams and had to press a little too often because the defense struggled badly. But everything was fine on offense, able to get around 400 yards a game. When it stalled, which did happen, and that was when the ground game was neutralized, there were issues. The Spartans did go out and get themselves a couple new backs. Some are saying terrific to replace Walker. Jarek Broussard was in Colorado in 2020 and did what he could there last year in a bad situation. Jalen Berger was a former super recruit for Wisconsin who just did not work out. So they have talent. It's just, will the talent translate on the field into production? There is some working to be done with a few key lost starters on the offensive line. And obviously with that, you obviously also have depth problems. They did get guard Brian Green from Washington State. And on the left side of the line, they should be fine with tackles Jarrett Horst and guard J.D. Duplain, who are two returners. Peyton Thorne was under the radar, even with over 3,000 yards passing and almost 30 touchdowns last year, because Walker was the star of the show. But when the offense didn't have Walker in the backfield for the bowl game, Thorne did show that he can come up in the clutch, throwing for 54 yards and 3 scores in their bowl game. Again, this is probably going to be a year where he has to do more. The running backs should still be the stars of the Michigan State offense, but Jaden Reed might be the second best receiver in the Big Ten behind Ohio State's Jackson Smith and Jigba. He hit the 1,000-yard mark last year with 10 scores, averaging over 17 yards a catch. Trey Mosley should be a reliable number 2 for the Spartans. An Illinois transfer, Daniel Barker, is a all Big Ten caliber tight end. Again, for Michigan State on offense is, can they reproduce the production that they lost with Kenneth Walker, an NFL player now? On the defensive side of the ball, this was a problem last year. They weren't able to stop anybody from throwing the ball. They brought defensive coach Scotty Hazelton in. He's been around the defensive assistant block with Michigan State, and there is some talent on the D, but again, does that translate to production on the field? They should not be the worst pass defense in America again, you would hope, but you will never know. The run defense was fine, but that's because everyone could throw the ball all over the field against Michigan State last year. They gave up too many first downs, penalties, blah, blah, blah. The defense sucked. I don't think we can get anywhere past that. So I'm not going to talk anymore about the defense, aside from they need to step it up if they want to be competitive this year in the Big Ten East Division. Other thoughts on Michigan State?
I think the big thing is that coach can fire up a team pretty hard. They are good. They have the talent. They can catch a team. But if you start hammering on them hard, you can beat them down and it's over. They get fired up real easy. I think they can catch a Michigan because of the rivalry. They can catch an Ohio State because if they go up, they're up. But if you smack the shit out of them real quick, they don't come back very easy. So, and they're down these weapons, and it's going to be hard this year, I think. That's my opinion.
Keith, any thoughts?
Without their defense, they belong in the Big 12.
There you go.
If they recreate last year, yes, they would be a Big 12 team. Aside from they run the ball, so it'd be like the Iowa State version, right?
Yes.
Next, we get to the Nittany Lions of Penn State. This year's all about Penn State getting its groove back. Obviously, James Franklin has been successful in the regular season, has not necessarily been able to win the big games overall. So they did have the one season whenever they should have went to the national championship game, or at least the playoff. But alas, Ohio State got the nod. So they know success. It's just going to be, can they translate that this year after a rough 2021 campaign? Offensively last year, and hopefully not the theme this year, the offense did not do enough. It was mediocre from the standards that many would expect given who was there. And they weren't able to hit a lot of downfield plays to anybody aside from Jahan Dotson. He is now in the NFL, so they've got to reload there. James Franklin, as has been the case, is able to bring in good recruiting classes to typically top 10 recruiting classes in the country, but those have not always translated to the field at all positions. The offensive line will be the big question mark. They need to be better. The running game was pedestrian at best at times last year, and they're hoping that some of their transfer portal gets Hunter Norzad from Cornell and JB Nelson from a junior college are able to bolster the offensive line for them to be better. Second leading rusher and former star, when I say star, former star at Penn State, Noah Cain has left to LSU. Kevon Lee is the man as far as the returners. They did bring in Nick Singleton as a recruit, who will also get time in. The Lawn Boys, as they've been come to be known as with Penn State, they've typically had 2 to 3 solid backs, and Penn State fans are hoping that will continue. Back for his who knows how many seasons, he's starting to become the Taylor Martinez of Penn State. Sean Clifford is back, threw over 3,000 yards last year. Obviously had some injuries towards the end of the season, which did not help, especially his mobility. He's good. He's not great. So he has to do everything in his power to limit turnovers and just be able to move the chains and get Penn State on the board. Again, Jahan Dotson was the main person at receiver, and they got to figure out how to make that work. Parker Washington and Keandre Lambert-Smith are back, so they will try to fill that void. And they brought in a transfer, Michael Tinsley from Western Kentucky, who obviously was an air raid offense last year. So they're hoping that that will help. As far as tight end, which has been the consistent stars on the offense, with Pat Freiermuth, you had others coming in the past, but this year it's Brenton Strange and Theo Johnson who should be the main tight end pass catching options. On defense, this was a bend not break situation last year. The only allowed more than 24 points twice, which goes back to the offensive issues that didn't allow them to break through last year, losing a lot of closer games. So when you give up no more than 24 points twice in a season in the Big Ten as Penn State, you should have a better record than they did. But when the defense allowed 20 points or fewer, Penn State was 7-1. So that was that magic mark, is allowed 20 points or fewer, and hopefully they continue to do well on the defensive side of the ball. They losing Arnold Ebiketie, who's in the NFL now. So they're hoping that they'll be able to reload there. The defensive line has typically been a strength over the past few years for Penn State. They've been able to translate talent to the field and to the NFL, but it is linebacker U, and that's where everyone will be looking. So they're hoping the linebacking core will be able to reload, because they did lose their top tacklers in Ellis Brooks and Brandon Smith, and it's going to be a hope that Curtis Jacobs is the one that comes out as the next linebacker at Penn State. The secondary should be a bright point overall. They have Joey Porter, who's a projected NFL draft pick at this point, and their leading tackler last year in Jair Brown. So the hope is that the Penn State defense will still be good and the offense will be able to catch up.
You good?
Huh?
Are you good? You got that done?
It's done, Jim.
James Franklin sucks. He's horrible. He's shit. You need a new coach. You're never going to recruit the big dogs with James Franklin. You're never going to win the big one with James Franklin. Get a new coach.
Get a new defense, Jim. Get a new defense.
Well, at least we try. We fire coaches and we get Jim.
Are you trying? We'll find out this year.
Muff, we replace coaches. People suck. We make moves. James Franklin has been there and nothing has changed.
Just go down to the chop house. Find yourself a new coach, Jim.
Get a new coach, Muff. Keith, step in here. What do you think about Penn State?
I think they're currently playing the safe bet. As far as coaching goes, I tend to agree with Jim a little bit. As far as recruiting, you need, I think, some fresh blood. Get some more talent in there. However, Point of contention. Actually, this is kind of interesting.
Point of contention.
I love this.
So it's actually sort of a little personal story. Apparently, I am somehow related very, very distantly to Troy Reeder, who was a linebacker for Penn State. He now plays for the Rams, I believe. So, small world. No idea. I've met him. Never.
What's that to do, James Franklin, Keith?
What was
Keith bleeds blue and white. Didn't you hear that?
that?
Do you like James Franklin?
That's
Keith?
what I just heard.
I don't dislike him. There's
Oh,
nothing to
Keith.
dislike about him.
He's trash.
Speaking of trash, moving on to a team that's named after turtles, the Maryland Terrapins from the great state of Maryland, Keith.
Yes.
I'm not going to ask you to go through this because you were very honest in saying I don't keep up with Maryland football.
And there's a reason for that, because over my 15 years of just casually observing from the sidelines, they've been the same team forever and ever and ever. They will always beat the teams they're supposed to beat, and they will always lose to the teams they are supposed to lose to. I mean, when you look at the rest of their conference, you're going up against schools that have almost 100,000 students enrolled at Penn State. You've got 50,000 at Michigan. I'm pretty sure there's a direct correlation between the number of kids you have in enrolled institution and the quality sometimes that comes with it. So they just fight an uphill battle every year. And they finally won last year. They had a winning season, but it was a struggle to say the least.
So did you just call all the other successful teams the Big Ten dum-dums?
No. Where did that come from?
Sounded like there's a prestige to Maryland.
Oh, no, not at all. Not at all. I'm just saying they have maybe 40,000 people at their school, and they don't have, I don't know. Maybe they need a new coach as well, too. Get some better recruiting going on.
You need to stop touching that terrapin statue before the game. I think that's the thing. I think they're whatever diseases you can get from turtles, obviously they're catching.
Hey, lay off the mascot, buddy.
It's a turtle, Keith. It's a turtle. It's better than a nut, I guess. At least snapping turtles have some redeeming value as a predator.
Turtles can't tear their ACLs either.
They don't have any.
We'll get into that later.
Later, I think now's the time, isn't it?
Oh no, with the NFL talk with Poe.
Oh, okay. I think that was a good breakdown, Keith. We're going to leave it there. Moving on to the team that Jim likes to think is Penn State's rival, Rutgers.
They are the rival. Just ask them.
Just ask Rutgers. I agree. So Rutgers has been successful as far as getting to bowl games and winning them. They're not necessarily a contender for a national championship anytime soon, and they may not play for a Big Ten title, but they're at least not the worst team in the Big Ten anymore. The offense just needs to be better. It was the worst in the Big Ten on third downs. It was inefficient, and overall the running game was hit or miss. But they did do well when the running game was on point. Greg Schiano is the head coach, says this year is all about being physical. They want to be a tough team on defense. They want to be a ground and pound team on offense. So that's the hope. They're going back to the basics. I guess they're trying to be like Nebraska a la Tom Osborne days. Leading rusher from last year, Isaiah Pacheco, is gone. And unfortunately, the person who's next person up only had 235 yards and 4 touchdowns last year. And the next person after that only had 205 yards. So could be an issue unless one of those guys step up. But they do have Noah Vedral at quarterback. He was the team's second leading rusher. So there's where the production may be able to be picked up a little bit. But it's going to be up to him to hit the easy throws and to keep the offense matriculating down the field. The receiving core didn't really get anything in the offseason, so I would imagine that Rutgers will be struggling throwing the ball and hope that the ground game can move them down the field. Defensively, they have to be better, but they're also playing against teams that are probably outmatching them on every position. So they got to figure out a way to come up with takeaways, which is a Schiano team staple. But there will be new coaches on the defensive side of the ball, which could create some issues early on. The defense allowed close to 400 yards a game and was worst in the Big Ten in pass efficiency defense. So not only were teams moving the ball, but they're also moving the ball through the air, which does typically translate to more points on the field. The corners, again, have to step it up, and they need to have more pressure from the defensive front. So everything that typically leads to positive defensive outcomes is what Rutgers needs to improve upon. Jim, any thoughts on Rutgers?
I think they're a team that will catch people. They're going to have more wins than most people anticipate, but they're still not a very good team.
Okay. Keith, do you have any thoughts on Rutgers?
No, I agree with Jim.
Okay. Indiana bringing up the rear here. Just when it seemed that India fans, things couldn't get worse for them, it got worse. They were last in the Big Ten East Division. Some say that the record of 2-10 was not as bad as it seemed. I don't know how that goes, but I mean, they played in some games where they were close enough, and they almost beat Cincinnati last year. Offensively, they need to find a way to put points on the board. They had the worst offense in the Big Ten last year, averaging less than 300 yards per game overall. They turned the ball over. They couldn't run the ball. As you would expect a 2-10 team to do, they did not do the things that you need to do in offense to put points on the board. Head coach Tom Allen is going to take a more active role in the offensive side of the ball, and they brought in some additional pieces through the transfer portal to help out. Last year, Michael Penix, who was supposed to be the person who led Indiana to mediocrity, at least in the Big Ten, did get hurt, and that was an issue. So they had to shop people around. Penix is now no longer with the program, going to Washington. So they welcomed in former Missouri starter Connor Bazelak to compete with Jack Tuttle and Donovan McCulley for the job, which right now Tuttle appears to have. But again, there may be a lot of unproven situations there, and things could change throughout the year. As far as receiving, they have people coming back. They brought some people in. They're going to have to just figure it out. The running game, again, you would expect getting an overhaul because they sucked. Up front, it's not a total rehaul, not a total retooling. But again, for a team that did not do well offensively, you know that they're going to try to fix the pieces in there. Defensively, all that was just said about the offense, defense was worse. They pretty much need to start back from scratch and figure it out. I would go through and give you all the names, but nobody cares about that. So we are going to get to our predictions for the Big Ten East Division. Keith is a little behind on this, so we don't expect much from Keith, but we'll allow Keith to comment on Jim and I's predictions. Sound like a good plan?
Sounds good to me.
Okay. So, Jim, you want to tit for tat go from the bottom of the division to the top? You say your last, and then I'll say my last.
Yes, and I will say, will West Virginia beat each one of mine that I say?
Okay.
Rutgers, I believe West Virginia can beat Rutgers, and they will go 4-8.
Okay.
Your turn, Mo.
The bottom of the division, I have Indiana, and I am just doing the Big Ten record. Indiana will be 1-8.
Indiana, 5-7. I believe West Virginia could beat Indiana.
In sixth place, I have Rutgers at 2-7 in the division, or in the Big Ten.
Next, I have Maryland at 6-6. I believe West Virginia could beat Maryland.
Okay. I have Maryland next as well at 4-5 in Big Ten play.
Then I have Michigan State at 7-5. They could not be West Virginia could not beat Michigan State.
I also have Michigan State at 6-3 in Big Ten.
I would tend to agree West Virginia would have a very, very difficult time beating the next few teams coming up on the list.
I then have Michigan at 10-2. Their loss would be Ohio State and Penn State, and they also would beat West Virginia.
I, in third place in the Big Ten East, have Penn State at 6-3.
I have Penn State with their only loss. They're 10-2 with their only loss in the Big Ten would be Ohio State.
I'm assuming the other's Auburn.
Yes.
Okay. In second place, I have Michigan at 7-2.
And then Ohio State, obviously, would be the dog piss out of West Virginia and going 12-0.
And I have Ohio State at the top as well, going undefeated in Big Ten play at 9-0.
So, Chris, I'm curious, with your third place Penn State team at 6-3, are you just sort of sandbagging in hopes to say, oh, look, they outperformed what I was expecting and maybe throw it back in Jim's face a little bit? Or is this a
I can only truly throw this back in Jim's face if Penn State beats Ohio State. So, yes, if Penn State beats Ohio State, I will throw everything back in Jim's face just because the head-to-head matchup. But I think that Michigan is building a program and will be able to this year and maybe next year. And I'm hoping Penn State will start to rebuild in a way that makes them competitive every year with Ohio State and Michigan.
They have to fire James Franklin if you want that to happen.
I mean, when's the last time Ohio State won a championship?
They've won more than Penn State.
When's the last time? Sounds like Ryan Day needs to go.
What, Big Ten championship?
No. The national
Because they've won
championship.
more than Penn State of those, that's for sure.
National championship, Jim.
Oh,
Because I thought that's what Ohio State was always playing for.
they are. How many of those have they had a shot at that Penn State hasn't?
I go back to the year that Penn State should have been at least in the playoff.
Woulda, shoulda, coulda, but weren't.
Well, Ohio State woulda, shoulda, coulda won a national championship in the past few years, and they haven't.
They got more than you got.
Okay.
Let's go to the AFC breakdown.
This year, we're going to talk about this year, Jim.
We're gonna see.
Quit playing in the past.
We're gonna play this year. We'll find
Okay.
out.
All right. This leads to the AFC North division breakdown. Keith will have something to say here because as Baltimore Guru, he is a Ravens fan
Yes.
because he likes birds more than turtles. Last year's standings, the Bengals 10-7, obviously were in the playoffs, made it to the Super Bowl. The Steelers in second place, 9-7-1. The Browns 8-9, and the Ravens also at 8-9. So, as is the theme, we will start with the best team and then work to the worst team. The Bengals, key losses: tight end CJ Uzoma and defensive tackle Larry Ogunjobi. And I do know that's how you say it. Key additions for the Bengals: they brought in tackle Lyle Collins on the offensive side of the ball, guard Alex Kappa, guard Ted Karras, and tight end Hayden Hurst. Offensively, we all know the show is led by Joe Burrow. At back, they still have Joe Mixon, and wide receiver, they have the superstar from last year, Jamar Chase, along with T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd, and Hayden Hurst is coming in as the new tight end. On the defensive side of the ball, they have lineman DJ Reader and Trey Hendrickson, and defensive back Chidobe Awuzie, along with Von Bell and Eli Apple. Eli Apple often criticized for how he gave up some big plays, especially in the Super Bowl.
And
So
basically existing in life, like his
Yeah.
entire way he handles life.
right, he's there and he just keeps getting it. Questions for the Bengals: will Joe Burrow continue to elevate his game in the Bengals team this year?
Yes.
I think he will continue to elevate, but not at the rate he did last year. Last year was phenomenal. Recovering from an ACL, he came out of nowhere. I know the offensive line is significantly improved. I think Joe Burrow was the highest sacked quarterback in the NFL.
That's probably true.
Yeah, I mean, the man spent more time on his back than he did upright. I actually feel bad for him, but I don't think the elevation will be as significant as last year.
All right. I do think, I mean, Joe Burrow, he can only continue to go up. So again, it's just the team going to come along for the ride? Will the defense be exposed as they were during the Super Bowl?
No, I think it will not happen as bad. It will happen, but it will not happen as bad.
I agree with that.
Yeah. And in this division, it's not like there are some great pass throwing quarterbacks that are sitting there in the wings waiting.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And can the running game keep defenses off balance throughout the year?
Yes.
I think this is the issue, and I don't think this is going to happen, unfortunately for Joe Burrow.
Again, I think it goes back to the division. I think that I don't think there's a defense out there right now in this division
You don't?
No.
I would disagree with that, and we will get to that. For many teams in this division, defense is going to be pretty good.
I'm
Yes,
not
Jim.
worried about it.
This is a division where defense is typically the strength.
I
Let's
don't
not
think so
forget.
this year. I
Let's
don't
not
think so
forget.
this year. I disagree.
I think if Jamar Chase and T. Higgins grow and mature with Joe Burrow, I think the receivers sort of reverse psychology will open up some of the running game.
Fair enough. Next, we move on to the Steelers.
Yeah.
From
Let's
Pittsburgh,
do that.
Pennsylvania.
Let's move on to them.
We'll move on to them and we will cover them, Jim. We will not move past them.
Yeah.
The Steelers' key losses: Juju Smith-Schuster lost to the Chiefs, cornerback Joe Hayden, and strong safety Terrell Edmonds.
And that's to other teams. What about the injury report?
Go ahead, Jim. Talk about the injury
We
report.
got some people got hurt.
Did they really get hurt?
Lots of people are hurt, Muff.
Who, Jim? Tell me who.
JJ Watt's hurt. Or TJ Watt's hurt.
Yeah, the best Watt. Don't forget.
I gave that to you a long time ago.
Who else? Since apparently there's significant.
Devontae Johnson's hurt.
Deontay Johnson.
Yeah, he's hurt.
Who they're both said to have no issues being able to start the season.
Chase Claypool.
Also,
Calvin Austin the third is hurt.
Are you just looking at the injury report? Did you just Google the injury report?
I just Googled the injury report. Got some injuries.
We have injuries in the last preseason game, which meant that, I just didn't want to play anymore. My knee hurts, guys. It's like a Rodney Dangerfield moment in Caddyshack. Oh, my arm.
So you're saying the Steelers don't have heart, is what I'm hearing.
Mike Tomlin's the coach. They're all heart, Jim.
The players aren't, though.
Quarterback, Mitchell Trubisky. Addition, quarterback Levi Wallace, linebacker Miles Jack, offensive lineman James Daniels. Some of the key additions on the offensive side of the ball. For the offense, led by, for now, quarterback Mitch Trubisky, probably to be at some point this season, Kenny Pickett. Najee Harris is obviously the workhorse on the offensive side of the ball, and wide receivers Deontay Johnson, Chase Claypool, and the hopeful heir to be the next best wide receiver in Pittsburgh, George Pickens, joined tight end Pat Freiermuth from Penn State. On the defensive side of the ball, we have Cameron Hayward from
the Ohio State.
Good. TJ Watt, the best Watt. And they also have linebacker Devin Bush, who is under a lot of scrutiny in Pittsburgh this year, and defensive back Minkah Fitzpatrick, who at the time he signed his extension was the highest paid safety in the league. No longer is that true. Questions in the Steel City. How many games until Kenny Pickett is quarterback one in Pittsburgh? Over, under 6 games. Go.
Under.
I
think it's a push. I think game 6 is when it happens.
Oh, look at you. Cheeky.
I make the line. I'm Vegas here.
That's cheeky.
Will Najee Harris be able to sustain his snap count and production this season?
Maybe.
I say yes.
Najee Harris was interviewed during the preseason game today at the end, and they asked, is this an issue? And he pretty much said, nah, man, why would that be an issue? I'm me. I'm great.
He's young enough. He is strong enough to endure the season, even with 17 games. I think he continues the production. I would say in the next 3 years is when you would really start to question or start to limit maybe some of his touches.
And finally, is George Pickens the next big wide receiver for the Steelers? Crickets. Got it. I think he is.
I think he is too. He looked good in some of the preseason games.
I don't know.
You don't know? You didn't watch any of these games, Jim?
That's what I mean. Like, I don't know. I don't like Steelers on TV. Turn channel. Why do I care?
He's honest.
He is. Just for that, Jim, you get to break down the Browns.
They suck. Let's move on to Baltimore. Key losses: wide receiver Rashad Higgins, wide receiver Jarvis Landry, center J.C. Treader, tight end Austin Hooper. Key additions: I don't even know why this dumbass is an addition. Deshaun Watson, see you at game 11. wide receiver Amari Cooper, quarterback Jacoby Brissett. Those additions suck.
Amari Cooper came from the Cowboys.
That's the only addition that's worth a damn, and even then. Okay, offense. Deshaun Watson and Jacoby Brissett are not the quarterback. So who's the quarterback? Who knows?
Jacoby Brissett is.
Running back Nick Chubb, Kareem Hunt, Ernest Johnson. Wide receiver Amari Cooper, Devon Peoples-Jones. Tight end David Njoku. Defense Myles Garrett, Clowney. Damn. This is why I should not have this many whiskeys before we do this show. DBs Denzel Ward, Greg Newsome.
And to be fair, I did give you a team that didn't have a lot of difficult names to pronounce.
I know. Again, the whiskey. Questions. Can Brissett keep the Browns on track for the first 11 games? Hell no.
That's a long time. The answer, no.
Will the running backs get enough touches across the board to keep them happy? Hell no.
Agreed. Hell nah.
Kareem Hunt will not be happy come week 6.
What happens if the Browns are 7-4 or better going into game 12? The sky is falling.
Agreed.
Does Deshaun Watson play then? If they're 7-4 or better?
Yes, I would say yes.
They gotta hit them ratings for that Texan game.
That's true.
For the Browns to give up. Oh yeah, that is true. I forgot that game 11 game where it's being played.
They got to make it rain money for the NFL. And does Brissett continue to get the QB nod if they're 7-4 after game 12 with the Texans? Sure.
So he's just trot Deshaun Watson out for that game and like, you suck. Get off the field.
Yeah, pretty much. The Browns are in a world of hurt.
It amazes me how the Browns are always have been the Browns, and just they continue to do Brown-like things. And I don't understand why they can't get out of their own way. I just don't understand. Every year when you think, oh yeah, they're going to be really good, there's something that happens and you just shake your head, and no one's surprised about it.
Browns is the Browns. That's the statement right there. It's been said, and that is it. The Browns.
On paper, the 2 previous years, they should have been freaking contenders. And they just botched that so hard. It's a shame.
Will you watch that week 1 matchup with Carolina?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
And I'll be cheering for Baker.
Oh, I think he's definitely the fan favorite.
Yeah.
When you get dealt dirty like that, of course you're going to root for him.
Absolutely. So Keith, it's your time to shine, buddy.
Oh boy.
your screen even like gives you a little bit of a purplish hue.
It does give you a purple hue.
Uh-oh. Well, that's not by design. That's just the poor lighting I have in my room here in West Virginia.
Outside of Morgantown.
Appease Jim.
Watch out, Jim may set fire to it later.
It's that radiation down there.
So bringing up, I can't believe I'm about to say this, bringing up the rear in the AFC North were the Ravens at 8-9, tied with the Browns. They have had some significant losses in a way. The most recent would have been Poe, the Ravens mascot, was tackled. It was part of, I believe it was part of a halftime show or might have been a pre warm-up routine, but he was tackled and tore his ACL is what the initial reports say.
Oh, great.
So,
carted off the field.
Yes.
I think if I remember right, this is like one of those games with like middle school kids.
Yes, and people thought it was part of the act at first, and then I think they started to realize, oh no, he's actually hurt. So a speedy recovery to Poe. And hopefully his replacement has as much energy and enthusiasm as he did, or she did.
Is the replacement Edgar Allen?
So they have 3. I think they had 3 birds, and then Poe was the most popular. They might have condensed it down to just 1. I'm not sure. But yes, they did have a few at one point in time. So moving on, key losses, we have their center, Bradley Bozeman. He went on to the Panthers. Offensive tackle Alejandro Villanueva retired, which was, I think, the right move. And kudos to the Steelers for letting him walk off into the sunset, a hero. as he did, leaving Pittsburgh and joining the Ravens, where he underperformed, I would say, in a tough situation. They also lost their cornerback, Anthony Averett, wide receiver, Marquise Brown, Sammy Watkins, their cornerback, Tavon Young, Jimmy Smith, I think, is still a free agent. Safety, Deshaun Elliott went to the Lions, and cornerback, Anthony Averett. Elliott went to the Lions, like I said, and Averett went to Vegas. Key additions, they had a ton of draft picks, a couple big free agency signings. The big one would be safety Marcus Williams. They have offensive tackle Morgan Moses, who was, I believe, recovering from an injury last year. It might have been injury or COVID. I can't remember which one. And then they brought back defensive tackle Michael Pierce from a few years ago. They have running back Mike Davis, defense end Calais Campbell re-signed with the team. They have Ronnie Stanley, hopefully returning from IR. He was absent 16 games last year. He tried coming back the first game, ankle injury, and just wasn't able to roll. They added safety Kyle Hamilton, center Tyler Linderbaum, and David Ajabo. He is recovering from an Achilles tear, so I doubt he plays this year. They have defensive tackle Travis Jones and punter Jordan Stout.
Punter.
Yes, they did draft a punter.
From Penn State.
Yes, very surprised by that move, but he's done a pretty good job in preseason. So we'll see what happens. A lot of comings and goings. Their team was decimated by injuries last year.
Yes, I was going to say that.
And by diarrhea.
I think that was the year before.
Right.
But I mean, I was reading a stat since they've been keeping, how many games won or lost because of injury. The Ravens are the only team, and I think it's by a substantial amount, to have lost so many games because of injury. It's by a landslide. I don't know how you calculate that, but that is the case. So on offense, they still have Lamar Jackson. They have J.K. Dobbins returning from injury, and Gus Edwards, who is on the IR. He will be out for 4 games. Hopefully he will returning. I believe his was an ACL as well. They have Mike Davis. They have wide receiver Rashad Bateman, Demarcus Robinson, who they recently added, and Devin Duvernay. They still have tight end Mark Andrews and Isaiah Likely, who is a name you will learn over the next year. I think he is going to be a breakout tight end replacement.
Draft him in the fantasy league.
Yeah. That's what I was going to say.
Anyone who's in the fantasy league, I would not draft him. He's their third string tight end. If you're desperate, maybe. Don't listen to Jim and Muff. They're here to sabotage your team. So let's see. So that brings us to their defense. In the middle, they have Calais Campbell, like we mentioned earlier. They have Patrick Queen going into his 3rd or 4th year. They still have Marcus Peters and Marlon Humphrey. And they now have Michigan's Mike McDonald. Interesting. Mike McDonald was an assistant coach with the Ravens, left, went to Michigan for a year, and then was brought back by the Ravens. Speculation would be that this was the plan all along, but he did good things at Michigan, proved himself, so he is back. I don't know how he gets creative. He's got a pretty stout defense to work with, so we'll see what happens. I think a lot of people coming back from IR is going to make that defense pretty potent.
When you have a player like a Calais Campbell, I mean, it's got to be good, right, Keith?
Oh yes, he's he's pretty good.
Two references.
So questions: will Lamar Jackson stay healthy, and will he perform up to par with his pending contract negotiations? Muff?
I think Lamar Jackson, he's going to perform no matter what. I think he's handling his own contract negotiation. I think he's publicly stated that if this isn't figured out by the time the season starts, then that's going to be put on hold. Mm-hmm. Lamar Jackson is the show there. Can he stay healthy is going to be the bigger question.
Jim, do you think he's going to stay healthy?
Yeah, I think so.
He did have injury last 4 games of the season last year, ankle injury, wasn't able to play. So people are citing that as a reason for apprehension, maybe signing a contract. But he was in the pocket. He wasn't out running, is his point.
He's yoked now, though.
He's a pretty big guy now. So, all right, let's see. Moving forward, let's see. Will the rest of the running game be able to protect Lamar Jackson?
J.K. Dobbins will.
If J.K. Dobbins stays healthy.
He'll be fine.
He was a beast his rookie season.
He's a monster.
Yes, kudos to Ohio State there.
No.
Thank you. See, Keith can come on the show anytime he wants.
No. I don't think the rest of the running game is going to be able to protect Lamar, and that's going to be the problem.
Why do you think?
I think that they're going to have ineffective running game, whether it's offensive line issues or whether it's for injuries, and Lamar Jackson is going to be shouldering the load again. That's the problem. That's the problem that the Ravens have, and I think it's going to continue to be the problem this year.
Okay. So if he has to shoulder the games, does he have the capability to pass the ball well enough to keep defenses honest?
No, and that's the other problem.
I feel like you're just a Lamar hater right now, Muff.
Muff's kind of an ass. It's okay.
I mean, that's me.
He plays the spoil for the people we like. It's just what happens.
I do think the system he is in, I do think Greg Roman, the offensive coordinator, needs to shoulder some of the load. I think he is setting the team up for failure at times, and that is not Lamar's fault, even though he's the one who's getting all of the credit, good or bad. That does fall back on Greg Roman. So,
Roman.
We will leave it at that. He is I guess, the offensive guru when it comes to mobile quarterbacks. You go back to his time with San Francisco and Kaepernick. I don't know what happens.
Is he the namesake for Roman Swipes?
I don't know.
You know about those, right, Jim?
Come on, Muff.
Nothing. Projected standings in the AFC North Division. Let's I will start. I think let Keith go last.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Okay. I'll start. Bringing up the rear, I have the Browns at 7-10, followed by the Ravens at 8-9, the Steelers at 9-8. Gotta get that winning season. And the Bengals on top of this division at the end at 12-5.
I have the Browns at 5-12, the Ravens at 8-9, the Steelers at 10-7, the Bengals at 11-6.
I have the Browns at 0-17. Just kidding. I think 6-10-1, just because I feel like that's a Browns things to do.
Yeah, that's
I have the Steelers at 9-8, the Bengals at 10-7, and the Ravens at 12-5.
Look at this guy. Comes on the Ravens win the division. So,
I mean,
question to the group: how would this change if Deshaun Watson was playing all games? Would it change?
I think they might have a few more wins, but I think they are still bottom of the AFC.
I think they're third. Yeah, I think they're third for me.
Over
the Ravens.
The Ravens? Judging,
they might beat the Steelers twice.
Oh,
and that would change things up for me.
Fair enough. Well, thank you, Keith, for joining us for the Big Ten and AFC North breakdowns here. You can catch all this on the YouTube as usual. And this wraps up this extended edition of what will be known as, Jim,
the football season. This is Mount Massive.
Yodelay.
Well done. You did good there. So we've decided that we're going to do the top worst football coaches since 1986. I chose that year because that was the year I was born. Keith and Muff just dove deep on this. I just picked the 5 people that I believe suck.
There's one name on here that I'm still not sure how's not on here, but
because
we'll get there.
The brevity of their career, well, I'm going to go first, okay? And then you can just flat out question me.
Okay.
Steve Sarkisian at USC. His time at USC, he got drunk and got fired. That's why he's 5. Brady Hoke, I mean, basically killed Michigan. Same as Rich Rod at number 3, killed Michigan. Butch Jones at Tennessee, he had what should have been the makings of a great Tennessee, and like got them back on the map, and he killed it and made a lot of stupid ass comments. And then Scott Frost at Nebraska, again, had the makings of a good thing, and he's made bonehead calls and lost more one-score games than I care to count. So those are my top 5.
And lost you money in the process.
Exactly.
I feel like it's a very recency bias situation there.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. I'm curious why James Franklin's not on your list.
Because at the end of the day, the brevity of his career, he's not a losing coach. He hasn't made enough bonehead decisions. I just genuinely think he could be better and put Penn State where they belong. Like, he doesn't suck. I just think he's like a shitty coach for Penn State. Like, if there was a 6, yeah, he makes a hell of an honorable mention for me. But he hasn't made bonehead moves like these 5 gentlemen.
All right, fair enough. Keith, because I know you're piggybacking off a couple of mine, I'm going to go next. That way you can do that appropriately. At 5, I have Rod Rust at the Patriots. He was the coach of the Patriots in 1990. For one and dones, this is about as bad as it gets. The 1990 Patriots won their second game of the season to move to 1-1, then lost their final 14 games, 11 of those by double digits. New England was minus 265 in the point differential, and that is 3rd worst in NFL history. The team also had 3 of its players receive NFL punishments as being part of a sexual harassment scandal that year.
Jeez.
So Rod Rust is number 5. Next, I have Lane Kiffin at Tennessee in 2009. Lane Kiffin has been an excellent recruiter and has an offensive mind. But there is one thing that he's even better at than that, and that's causing drama. During his time with the Volunteers, Kiffin accused Urban Meyer of violating NCAA recruiting rules and then went on to break the rules himself by mentioning the recruit by name. He then made a dramatic exit for USC within 18 months of going to Tennessee, and then obviously he was then fired at USC on an airplane tarmac after lost to Arizona State. So he was also fired from Alabama in about the same type of fashion. So Lane Kiffin,
I couldn't remember what happened to him at Alabama.
I think it was a similar like exit in the way of like it was unexpectedly expected, and it was the way in which it happened, but I forget the way it went down.
He pissed off Nick. I remember that.
Yeah, and I forget the details as well.
And Nick definitely put the screws to him. Like, all right, you don't speak to the king like that.
Right. At 3 for me is Charlie Weiss at Notre Dame from 2005 to 2009. Now, he did have winning seasons, so this is kind of the most risque pick for me. He did take him to 2 bowls, but everything went south very quickly after he did experience some success, and he was relieved in 2009. The big thing for Charlie Weiss is that he took Notre Dame after signing a huge contract extension, and then things went to the shitter, and they cost him between $30 and $40 million in 2005, and they had to continue paying him. So Charlie Weiss gets the capitalizing on the big deal and then shit in the bed.
Yeah, and his success might not have been his success at Notre Dame.
Right, because it was early on in his career.
Yeah.
Next at number 2, we have Rich Rodriguez in Michigan from 2008 to 2010. He obviously came from West Virginia, where a spread offense led by Pat White at the time did really well. And it was just not for Michigan. And they suffered. He tried to retool the team, and it just didn't work out. This is another case of a team having to pay for a coach. In this case, it was for legal fees when West Virginia sued him for breaking his contract with them whenever he went to Michigan. And this ended in him being fired in January of 2011 after the 2010 season.
That would be Alex's number 1.
I
Right.
figured.
The
Oh,
shit about
both
Rich Rod,
Alexes. Your
Yes.
Alex, your wife Alex, and Alex.
the shit about Rich Rod was, and this was like the I remember vividly the deal like ender when it began. Like he got there and it like instantly killed him. Was like he got there, they were gonna bring in the spread, and it was like maybe this is the killer. Maybe this is how they'll stop trestle ball. Like this is how they'll do it. And all of the alumni, I'm talking like Charles Woodson, all of them guys were like they wanted to come in and be a part of the program and like help. And he was like, no, your access has been denied. And everybody was like, to hell with you, Rich Rod. Like, nah. And that was it. That was the capper. And then he never could get the steam back behind it. And so, like, I thought, as an Ohio State fan, like, keep him around forever because I want to win. But I also thought, like, they were cutting him out underneath of him. Like, they were always souring the program on him. So there wasn't buy-in.
Yeah.
Because, like, alumni were killing it for him.
Right, and that's what happens with those established programs, right? Like if
Yeah.
you don't have the alumni on board, then you better win, or they're going to find a way to get you out of there.
And that was my worry, and I brought it up with Ohio State, was when Notre Dame, and that's the coming up game, when they started cherry picking James Laurinaitis and all those guys, it was like, Ryan Day, what did you do to piss off the alumni? And is this the death bell? You know what I mean?
But we'll
Anyway,
see.
I'm sorry, Muff.
No, you're good. Rich Rodriguez is the head coach this year for Jacksonville State.
Yeah.
So he may redeem himself, at least to not be on the top 5 list.
We'll see.
We will see. And number 1 on my list, because it only had to be this man, Urban Meyer, for his stint, not in Ohio State, obviously, but with the Jacksonville Jaguars. He was given the castle in Jacksonville, along with many think the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck in Trevor Lawrence, and he pretty much just ran it into the ground with some different controversies, as well as just not being a solid NFL head coach. Not being able to transition his coaching strategies and his coaching ways from college to the pros. They obviously went 2-11 under Urban Meyer, and they're outscored by 160 points, which means, if he stayed there the whole season, he may have been worse than Rod Rust with the Patriots. And Trevor Lawrence didn't really get anything going under Meyer's reign. And then obviously what did him in was his trip back to Ohio in the Chop House picture, which led to, a namesake for our betting show, which obviously is no longer going to be that because, he's not a head coach anymore. The Urban Meyer risky pick of the week.
Yeah.
I was waiting for the whistle, Jim.
I can't. Like, I just... We'll move on.
Anyway, his tenure in the NFL was terrible, so I'm basing this only on his NFL tenure, not his success in the college ranks.
So, what bothered me about Urban, right, was he told Ohio State, I'm not going to take your guys. Okay? But his guys were his insulation.
Right.
Like, Urban Meyer, you are an intense, extreme, totalitarian motherfucker. Like, what you need is your handlers to tone your message down to the world. Okay.
And instead, he brought in Bobby Carpenter.
He brought in Schlegel. He didn't bring in Bobby Carpenter.
That's right.
And Schlegel's like just as intense.
And Bobby Carpenter is too.
And it was like, you went out there and got like the B team who basically drink your holy water and they don't care. Like, oh, you kicked the punter? Cool. I'll kick him too. Sweet.
Leading by example.
It was like, that was not going to work. And then we're like, Coach, you're going to the bar? All right. Yeah. Like, it was not a well thought out plan. And I think like you should have known when you were on Shag Khan's kids professional wrestling show, like, hey, Coach, we're starting to lose our way. We're losing focus here.
Keith, give us
Oh,
your
boy.
top five.
So initial gut reaction was Rich Rod and Urban Meyer as well too. Those were the two that first came to mind. So we did a little bit of thinking, a little bit of digging. So a 2-for-1 for me, just based off of character, sort of similar situations, would be Bobby Petrino from Arkansas when he was caught speeding, lying, and then the big kicker would be infidelity. He was found with a former Arkansas volleyball player when he was riding his motorcycle around town, got into an accident.
Yep.
And we don't need to recount all of it, but
We do. We do.
It was the theme for Blue Mountain State.
It was
Yes,
epic.
yes. So maybe the TV show is great, but when real people are involved, that hurts people. That's not good.
His press conference, all beat to hell, rolling or sliding that motorcycle, was one that I will remember vividly for the rest of my life.
So, and sort of in the same vein would be the University of Boulder, Gary Barnett. I don't know the exact specifics. I do remember making it pretty big headlines. The allegations were basically sex and alcohol were be given to recruits, and sort of hedging his bets in the recruitment department in that regard. So
Nothing says come to your school like sex and alcohol.
yeah, I wonder. I was never involved in that recruiting process. I really wonder if that goes on other places.
You wonder or you wish?
I don't know. I don't know. Really don't wish that. That's bad.
As an 18-year-old, you probably wish.
I'm not 18 anymore.
I know.
We're setting the example for
Look at
younger
Keith
listeners.
trying to stay all PC. I appreciate you.
So moving up the list, I also had Sean Payton. I know he has denounced what he has done. People deserve a second chance. But when you go back and you look at the bounty gate that he was involved in as the head coach of the Saints, that is really, really atrocious. There are 32 teams in the NFL. That is the pinnacle of coaching. Every coach I know would say NFL, NFL, NFL. And here you are essentially endorsing attempts to end people's careers at times.
I agree. That's a good one.
I mean, you go back and if you watch some of those games, some of those late hits are really bad. They're very blatant, and some of them weren't even called. So I think it's pretty despicable, but tomatoes, tomatoes. He was still a great coach. He won lots of games. Drew Brees and him did good things. So you can't discount everything they did together.
Keith getting all serious.
And then the last one, just because for some reason I am crapping on the Browns today, Hugh Jackson. He was 3-36-1 as the Browns head coach. That is atrocious. He was at the helm for an 0-16 season. Now, he obviously didn't have a whole lot of assistance from the front office, and he had players who probably had zero motivation to be there and overachieve and win at all. But what more do you need to say? 3-36-1.
I may as well have been O
Yeah.
in the number.
Yeah.
It would have been the same result.
Can you imagine any other head coach having that record for that long?
No.
3-36-1. So
Harvard. It's about the only place I'd fly.
And
What's that graduation rate? Oh, still good. Oh, keep doing your thing, coach. We'll be all right.
So there's my list. I think if I piggyback, that'd be 6. But
You work. That works.
there we go.
Well, that was Mount Massive.
Yodelay. Hee-hoo. Go.
This is Quick Thoughts. So our guest for Quick Thoughts is Keef. Keef will be our host instead of Alex, who's still in surgery.
Alex is not having surgery.
Yeah.
He's performing surgery.
Yeah.
All right, quick thoughts. Lightning round. NFL. Former
Lightning round.
Patriots. Former Patriots great wide receiver Wes Welker and current Dolphins coach is going to the internet to rip the NFL for denying his disability claim against the NFL. He said that there is not enough information in his medical records to tie his injuries to being in the NFL. Wes Welker played for around 12 years and was a wide receiver that went over the middle quite frequently. He returned kicks, and he also took his fair share of licks. What more does the NFL need to support the claim and give him something? And then the part dose of that question, how does a billion-dollar operation not take care of its players after they finish playing?
I'm gonna take this one. This is stupid. Give the man his money. Like, this guy gave his life to this league. Give him his money. Again, like the question says, billion-dollar operation. Give him his money. This is dumb. Dumb.
Pay that man. Pay that man his money.
Pay him his money.
All right.
Absolutely.
Any other thoughts?
Nope.
Moving forward. College football. Nick Saban continues to show why his contract may be the best in sports. He has the ability to negotiate his contract. He was given or negotiated a $93.6 million extension through 2030. So thanks to Jimbo Fisher's contract at Texas and A&M. As a reminder, Saban has a franchise tag type of clause in his contract that if his salary is not at or above the average of the top college coaches, it is renegotiated. So he is doing great things. Some would say the GOAT is doing GOAT-like things. So do we think Saban will coach out this current extension? As a side note, he will be 79 come 2030. Holy smokes.
So Saban has said he does not feel his age, but I don't think he's ever directly answered that question since this has happened. I am going to say no. He doesn't last out this contract, and not because he's dead or anything like that. It's just because at some point there's going to be one or two down years at Alabama, and by down I mean like they may not win the SEC and be in the playoff, and it will be in the latter parts of this contract, and people will say, maybe it's time for Nick to go, and they'll give him all his money, but it'll just be time for Nick to move on.
I firmly disagree with Muff's assumption there. Like, he's gonna get paid and keep getting paid and eating them honey buns every morning. And he's gonna be there until he croaks. That's just all it is. I don't see a down year in Alabama ever.
What's considered a down year? That's the tough part.
Oh,
Not
they'll
winning
win
a
the
championship?
SEC. Yeah, they'll win the SEC every year.
I agree with that.
That's my take.
Muff, any rebuttal? Follow up?
No, I disagree, obviously. So time will tell.
There you go.
Tune in to episode 750.
All right, moving forward. The potential new wealthiest university is the University of Texas, which may overtake Harvard's $53.2 billion endowment. And that would be as of June 21st. The value of the Texas endowment at that time was $42.9 billion. The source of the new wealth would be crude oil and natural gas. And with Bloomberg reporting the rising prices, Texas earns $6 million a day on 2.1 million acres it owns in the Permian Basin. So, as much as we do rag on Texas for their football program, is this still one of the most coveted positions in college football?
Jim.
I'm trying to figure out how to answer that. No matter how much we rag on Texas for their program, is it still the most coveted position in college football? I guess because you're gonna get tons of money. The NIL situation means I can pay them. The facilities are going to be great. Your salary is going to be great because I can be paid. So yes, whether it sucks or not, it's about them dollars. So yeah.
Texas. You think about football, Jerry Jones, and more football. And Texas, the University of Texas, has the money to back this up. They just keep bringing in dollars. Used to be just oil, now it's oil and natural gas. And yeah, it's still going to be coveted for the reasons Jim said. You're going to get paid.
but they're in the SEC, so like they're never gonna hit the holy grail next year, but you're gonna get paid.
Right? Because they're going to get more dollars once they get to the SEC from TV deal and all that. So
So weird. Texas is weird.
It's all about that money.
Yeah.
All right. So moving on, let's we haven't talked about basketball in a while. How about we move there?
All right.
So we've got as many headline grabbing, trade requesting. Oh my goodness, Kevin Durant. So now he's saying that he's staying with the Nets, and that starts to bring up the season, the back and forth that he had throughout this entire season. So he requested a trade that was originally denied by the Nets management. Then he called for the heads of Steve Nash and the GM Sean Marks. That obviously didn't happen. And then he was talking about, well, I'm not getting in my way, so I might retire just to see what the recourse would be. Obviously, he's not retiring now. So, what if you were in charge of the NBA? What would you do to fight back against a player setting a standard like this moving forward?
exactly what they did. Precisely what they did. Oh, you want okay. No, you want us to no, we're not firing him. No, we're not trading you. You're gonna retire? Okay. If you don't get all this money, then I guess I'll play. Like, and this is Kevin Durant is not the first person to do this. I think this is the first person that I can recall in the recent past that ownership has stood up to and said, no, you signed a contract with us, you're going to play. So with it being Kevin Durant is a big deal to me, but we will see what happens come the beginning of the season. Is he going to pull like a James Harden or a Ben Simmons? And then we'll see how this really plays out.
I think he screwed up when he went to the Nets. Like you lost some of that leverage to do these kind of moves, and you're notorious. You've kind of run your run, so to speak. So like you're out of options, buddy. You can have your crybaby fit all you want, but they don't care. And you can go ahead and tank the Nets if you'd like. They don't care.
And then you'll be even more hated.
Right.
Right.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
Your move.
I appreciate what they did. Basically, ignoring the squeaky wheel and stepping up and saying you're a big boy. You make your own decisions, and you reap what you sow.
Yep.
I applaud them.
Yep.
Okay. So sticking with basketball, another headliner is Skip Bayless and LeBron James. Skip took to Twitter, and I'm not really sure where this all started, but he took to Twitter saying that LeBron James will make $200 million more than Tom Brady during his career. So he elaborated a little bit. He said that Brady essentially took a winner's discount to make his team better, and he also referenced Tim Duncan doing the same thing. He said Tim Duncan was underpaid the last 4 years of his contract. I think the Duncan deal, he said, was 10 million, 10 million, 10 million, and then 6 million. So LeBron will make, I think it's 50 million in years 2000, or what was it? 50 million over the next 2 years of his career. And I think the point of this, Skip was trying to point out that besides hating on LeBron, that LeBron might be holding back the Lakers in being able to compete for a championship. I think he has a point. What do you think, Muff?
No.
It's Jim. It's Jim.
Jim.
No. And
No
it's
what?
because it came out of Skip's mouth. So whatever Skip says, he's full of shit. LeBron got paid. I don't understand the comparison between Tom Brady. I understand that Tom took a winner's discount, blah, blah, blah. I don't think he's holding the Lakers back. It is what it is. Like, Skip, I tell you what, you can make your show better, but you got to take a pay cut. Your move. Skip ain't doing that. he's chased the paper. Let him be. That's my take. Everybody's gonna get paid.
LeBron is holding the Lakers back, but not because of salary. It's because he's recruiting the geriatric crew to play in Los Angeles.
And I was waiting. There we go. There we go. Let's move on to baseball.
That's the first time you'll ever hear Jim say that.
Yeah.
Let's move on to baseball.
To baseball.
Oh, let's see. So in baseball, the New York Yankees reliever Aroldis Chapman was placed on IL because of a leg infection stemming from a tattoo.
Muff, go.
Only in baseball.
Muff, I need to ask you something.
Yeah.
Okay, if your job is to be using your arms as one of the, the most expensive tools you have,
Yep.
do you go put them in any form of danger during the time in which you use them?
Well, in this case, it was his leg.
You
I'm asking,
still need those two in baseball.
do you put your arms in danger if you're using your arms?
No.
Exactly. You do not put your arms in danger if you're using your arms, right?
Right.
This man's body, his entire body, is the tool of choice. Like, that's what he needs.
Right.
Why would he put it in danger and get an entire freaking sleeve done? Doesn't make any sense.
Was it a sleeve?
Yeah. It was a whole sleeve. I
on his
read the
leg?
article.
It was a leg. It was a whole leg sleeve.
Yep. It was dumb.
I mean, it's not his first tattoo, I don't think.
Still stupid.
Okay.
Dumb.
Moving on to golf. I'm going to take the lead on this one. Moving out of baseball into golf, Jim's two favorite topics.
Yeah.
So
And
this
by
is
now the listeners have turned it off.
the Tour Championship, which is the end of the FedEx Cup playoff. Was held at East Lake Golf Course in Atlanta this past weekend. Rory McIlroy was the winner, winning his third FedEx Cup title, coming back from 6 shots back on Sunday to beat out Scotty Scheffler, who had been at the top pretty much all season. They were in the last group together, and this cements Rory's dominance another year, and serendipitously taking the crown in this case, because the PGA also announces enhancements to its tournament schedule after collaborating with Rory McIlroy and GOAT Tiger Woods. These enhancements include additional elevated events that bring the total number of elevated events to 20 next season. And these are elevated events because the purses are at least $20 million in each of them. They include 12 regular season events, the 4 majors, and then the tour playoff events at the end of the tour calendar. The top tour players have committed to playing these events. I don't know what that means, but I'm guessing it's like the top 15 to 20, which is a big step forward since many in the past have just played events they think they need to play to prepare for the major tournaments, the bigger paydays. The Player Impact Program, which we've talked about on here before, which is engagement in social media, engagement with fans, has also doubled its rewards from 50 million to 100 million next season. And there's also a new earnings assurance program. It replaces the previously announced Play 15 program because they had to continue to elevate this. And this means that all Korn Ferry Tour, so the minor leagues of golf graduates and above in the tour's priority ranking, who compete in at least 15 events will earn no less than $500,000 per year. So this is a guaranteed amount, as the tour will fill the gap for players who fail to meet that benchmark. A travel stipend program was also announced. It will be implemented for non-exempt members, so those that do not automatically get into events, and that's like the lower end of those that are on the tour, and they will receive $5,000 for travel and tournament-related expenses when they miss the cut. So again, some guarantees. Those stipends are not part of the tournament purses, those millions of dollars that we talked about. The question, and I'll ask you two to say this before I say my opinion, is this enough to compete with what LIV Golf has become? And will this bring attention to LIV players wanting to consider coming back to the PGA Tour?
This
Keef.
is a start, and it is a step in the right direction. I think the LIV Golf has been good. Competition is good. I do not think this is enough to lure the big hitters back to the PGA, to the tour. but it is enough to keep the younger up and coming golfers involved. I think it is enough to keep their young talent in the tour, in the PGA. I honestly can't believe that there was no stipend beforehand for some of the things, the travel, the expense, that the player had to supplement that with their own money.
Jim.
It's dumb. Golf is dumb.
That's unfortunate you feel that way since we just sponsored a hole in a golf outing.
The PGA versus the live thing, like it's basically this whole live thing is neutered the PGA. So, like, to clarify for me, Muff, Roy won what today?
He won the FedEx Cup, which gave
Is
him
the season,
Right. He won $18 million for winning today.
and he was against no one because they're all golfing in live golf.
It's not
No.
entirely accurate because the number one player in the world is who he beat.
And I
Scotty.
believe
Scotty Scheffler, yeah.
I believe Scotty Scheffler started at 10 under and Rory was at 6 or 4.
And he double bogeyed the first hole.
Yes.
But couldn't there be like still some asterisks there because all the other golfers in the world were playing in live and they got kicked out?
None of them were actually going to be competing this year. Like, none of them were competitive in this scope before they left for live. They left for live because it was the automatic payday. They
Now,
were
the
not
flip
guaranteed. Yeah.
The flip side of that is they left early though.
Right.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
some of them, yeah.
Yeah, your DJs, some of those big names left pretty early and got the ball rolling. So they weren't there. Jim has a point with that.
I like Keith.
But the world number one, when you beat him and he has a handicap and he has, strokes to give, that's saying something.
I don't know. This live thing needs to be like, we need to figure this out. We need to make this thing work with the PGA so we can get our golfers back and the big guy. And I need more controversy. I need more WWE on the greens.
Jim needs Bryson and Brooks back because he
Yes.
he fed into the Bryson and Brooks dynamic.
That worked for me. This is just boring again.
Fair enough.
But at least they're going to get paid now.
Sure, I agree.
And that wraps up this week's edition of Quick Thoughts.
Oh, mighty Muffnac, we call on thee for the last of our questions for the AFC North. Are you ready, oh mighty Muffnac?
Yes, I am here again.
Are you ready for the season to begin, oh mighty Muffnac?
Muffnac, heard you talking about Roman swipes, and they are getting me ready for the action.
Okay, oh mighty Muffnac. My first question.
Hmm.
Who will be the Steelers quarterback at the end of the season?
At the end of the season, the quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers will not be Mason Rudolph. It will not be Mitchell Trubisky. It will be Kenny Pickett.
Okay. What will be the Browns' record at the end of the season?
The Browns. What a shitty franchise. They've got Deshaun Watson on their team. And who knows who the hell else they'll bring in. Some other bad people. Bad off the field, bad on the field. Bad. 4 wins for the Browns. 4 wins.
Thank you, Muffnack.
Poop City.
Will Lamar Jackson get the paper and Baltimore finally pay the man?
Lamar Jackson. I know we have a Baltimore guru on the team, correct?
He is here with us today. Yes, Muffnack.
Oh, hello there, oh mighty Muffnac.
Keef. What is the leading newspaper in Baltimore?
The answer would be no.
Is it the Baltimore Sun?
Oh, yes.
That is the only paper Lamar will be picking up in
Oh,
this offseason.
So you're saying he's not going to get a contract, Muff?
Not
Muff
with
Nack.
not with Baltimore.
Oh, okay. My last question, then I'll pass it over to Keith. Is Joe Burrow this year's MVP?
Joe Cool, the man with the cigar. Joe Burrow will not be the MVP this season. It will be another quarterback in his draft class, though.
Please enlighten us, Almighty Muffnac.
I do not want to give away the betting advice for those betting the futures.
Oh, okay, Muffnac. Will you do so on the betting show?
I am a greedy bastard, so probably not.
Self-aware.
Keith, go ahead, buddy.
Oh, mighty Muffneck. Will
Oh,
Jamar,
new voice enters the crystal ball.
will Jamar Chase have more or less than 8 TDs?
Jamar Chase will be chasing touchdowns all season from Joe Burrow, and he will have more than 10.
Oh, okay. One more for you, oh mighty Muffneck.
Yes.
Will Lamar Jackson have more or less than 1,000 rushing yards?
Lamar Jackson will have less than 1,000 rushing yards. Unfortunately, he will have dysentery like the Oregon Trail once taught us. And diarrhea will have an unfortunate end in Baltimore. I say again, poop city.
Thank you, Almighty Muffnac, for sharing your knowledge.
You're welcome.
Thank you for gracing us with your time, oh mighty Muffneck.
Will I be invited to the betting show?
You have an open invite to any show, Muffnac.
Fantastic.
Wow, I don't know what to say about that.
Well,
Wait. Hey,
did-
where'd you come from?
Every time Muffnac comes on, I have to leave. Guy's a dick.
He can't keep it together.
He's an absolute asshole.
Oh, buddy.
Did we have any trademarks, or did we stick with the old?
We stuck with the Poop
card?
Poop City.
Oh,
And
Did-
Muffnac's a greedy bastard.
did we talk about TikTok again, or
So no TikTok for
no
the TikTok.
well? Guess we're not going viral this week, boys.
Not this week. Nope.
Well, that ends another episode of Sports Stuff with Jim and Muff. Today is Monday, August 29th. We are in football season. Thanks again, Keef, for stepping in for Alex today and giving us Baltimore tidbits.
Thanks for having me, boys.
It was great having you. Thank you.
As always, keep up with us on all of the social media platforms. Watch us on YouTube. Tell the friends. Do all the things. As we get into football season, we will have the betting episode weekly.
Yes, sir.
Keef
Yes.
may make special guest appearances because in 2 weeks we will be together in Colorado playing golf and doing things for a week. So Keef, and we're going to call him the guru of defense, but not the defense we're thinking about on the football field. Potentially another guru will come on the show. So until that time, listening to not just this episode, but the episode that come out on Thursday, the betting episode, the first of the year. Get excited and to do all of those things and to make this rocket ship get all the way, not just to the moon, but to other planets. You make sure that you tell a friend, make a friend,
Be
a friend.